to another edition of Check Call. Don't forget to subscribe to Check Call, the newsletter on FreightWaves.com if you haven't already. Today we welcome David Bell, CEO and founder of Clone Apps. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you.
I'm kind of excited today. This is something we haven't touched on in a hot minute. We hit it pretty hard and heavy at the beginning of last year, but we're kind of diving back into that AI space. Before we get too far into that, though, let's get some background on you and kind of how you started Clone Apps.
Sure. Clone Ops was essentially started in May of last year when I heard the LLM models for the first time and realized that, it was definitely going to have a place in logistics and elsewhere. So I went out and did some research and found some good AI tech people to bring in and started building the platform to take to the market and hit logistics first, because that's my wheelhouse of what my past businesses in logistics. I consolidated freight for a lot of the brokers for 25 years and moved cargo for them as a trucking company, logistics. And then I was co-founder of Lean Solutions, which is one of the largest nearshoring companies, the first to do nearshoring, pioneers of nearshoring in logistics, with over 10,000 employees there. And I just thought that this AI and the LLM and what I could build with my experience could definitely have a good impact in making those employees better and more productive, and employees here better and more productive.
So just some casual heavy hitters on that resume, Lean Solutions, we love them. So just some casual things that you've been a part of.
Well, FreightWaves, this was our first real partnership at Lean. When Craig and I met, I knew he was going to do great things, and he has. And I said, this is the spot where we're going to make the pillar. It was FreightWaves and TIA were the two main ones, but we went big. FreightWaves always delivered massive opportunities for us.
So when it comes to kind of the AI role in the freight brokerage space, that seems to be what everyone's talking about. A couple of years ago, everyone was like, oh, visibility this, visibility that. But now everyone's really kind of doubled down on this AI approach. And there's so many different AI solutions out there that it's almost kind of overwhelming. So what are kind of the biggest opportunities that are out there for a brokerage or a 3PL to really kind of lean into the AI enhancement? Because, I think to not kind of lean into AI or do something with it would be a complete miss and will overall hurt an operation. So what are some of those opportunities that's kind of like this is a pretty good place to start?
Yeah, it's definitely tricky. I mean, when you look at sort of like when RPA first came out, it was a similar, like, well, how do we deploy it? Where do we deploy it? Do we have the bandwidth and the people to make it work? And so I think AI is, it's interesting. There's a lot of paperwork AI out there, and paperwork flow and workflow AI from start to finish that people have been using, especially in the last year, adopted many of the companies out there doing that. When it comes to the voice AI agent, I think it's very new, and I think people are deploying it very carefully. They're deploying it in low risk situations where they're not really dealing with customer facing. It's more carrier facing. It's more vendor facing. It's more high phone volumes where they're getting inbound calls and trying to avoid people being on hold and whatnot. And so it's almost like the voice attendant is now voice AI attendant. So it's, I think that's the big change, and people are going to find a use case for it, but I think they're doing it very carefully.
I think that it has to be really careful because, it's the same as when you're implementing any kind of technology is you have to have, you can't just say, okay, well, all of a sudden overnight we're implementing all of these things and we're making all of these changes, because ultimately that's going to set you up for failure to try and change all the things at once. It's kind of like you have to take that, approach of, we have to just take small measured approaches, kind of like that scientific approach. You'll only change one variable at a time before you just go in and do everything, because that's also very overwhelming to try and change everything at one time.
Well, it's tricky too, because you have to integrate it with your systems, and then you got access to information, and it's not, it's not adopted and used by everybody. It was similar to nearshoring. When we started nearshoring, people were very concerned. It's in a, third world country, Colombia. How are the people? How is, is technology? Are we going to be able to do it remotely? So there was a lot of uncertainty, and it took a long time for lean to get, full adoption. I mean, we started it in 2012 and 13 and really didn't take off until 16, 17, and 18. And then when COVID hit in 2020, it really took off because then people realized you can do, you can work remote. And I think that changed the game for us. But for this technology, I think people are going to find a way to deploy it because they don't want to lose a competitive advantage. And, but I think what we've done is we've made it more of a enhanced work tool and accessory to an employee and a person working in whatever department they're in to make them better, more productive, handle the stuff that they, have to get on the phone and stop everything to do. Cause you can multitask with emails and other stuff, but like when you get on the phone, you kind of got to focus. So I think if we can get rid of some of those phone calls that are just repetitive and people just want information from both sides, right? It's not just the people calling in want a quick answer and people answering it want a quick answer. So I think we can solve a lot of that with the voice agents.
Yeah, there's a lot of, because a lot of those phone calls that you get as a broker is not, they're not all, oh, I have this really complex situation that I need to take a minute and figure out, like maybe a loan's being held hostage or something crazy like that. A lot of like, those are like maybe half of 1% of the phone calls that make up from a day to day. For me, it was more of the, um, oh, I just want to call in and chit chat, or, oh, what loads do you have for me this week? Or something that did distract you from other things of your job. And I've long been an advocate of automate what you hate. Specifically, there is one of my very first jobs was literally calling and getting like track and trace times. How far away are you, getting ETAs, doing all of that. And it was the second I found out that there was a piece of software, like obviously this was like probably 10, 15 years ago this happened. But now I'm like, I wouldn't have that job because there is so much automation out there that like anyone could just go in, click it for the whole day and send out and get like text messages or ping not EDIs.
The ELO, uh, the ELD
Yes. Ping ELDs. Hold on.
thing, EDIs, ELDs, similar.
Give a dyslexic girl acronyms. That's going to go great. But the second I figured out that you could just send a note and ping an ELD, ping anything, I was like, that would have saved me literally 7 hours of my day because it was literally just calling people or emailing them for updates. And I mean, that's great because that's what you want. You don't want to have people sitting there doing the monotonous, doing the ordinary. You want to have that human capital working their time and energy on those complex problems that are always going to be there because a shipper is always going to put the wrong load on the wrong trailer and they're going to realize it 100 miles away.
Yeah, there's always going to be so much exceptions, and that's what we're focused on having the people take care of now is the exceptions and escalations versus having to I mean, imagine accounts receivable, right? And most of it's done. The old days you had to call everybody, and then now you email statements, you got auto email, you got web portals that they can go into, but they still have to make calls for 10 or 20% of the accounts because if you don't call, they don't pay. And those calls that someone can do one at a time. Like it's literally time consuming. They have to dial the phone. They have to get the person one at a time. And now with our accounts receivable AI agent, they can initiate 20 calls at one time, watch 10 that they actually get on the phone and answer, watch those conversations take place, and then jump in and take them over with the live takeover if they need to. And maybe they don't need to because maybe the person just wants to confirm they got the email with the statement and they're going to pay everything on Friday. They're not missing anything, and great, have a nice day. So now that accounts receivable person can make 4 or 5 times as many calls, now they can do other things, and you could deploy other workloads onto them, and or a track and trace rep now doesn't have to make, instead of making 100 phone calls, they can make 20, and now they can move into some low level carrier sales and start there. So there's opportunities to have this help people, and just the learning as you're deploying your agent, you're watching it work, you're learning too. So coming in, somebody new always went in track and trace, right? Okay, the first job in logistics is track and trace because what can you can't screw much up talking to a driver, finding out where he is. So as they're seeing this agent talk and answer questions and do, because they're following the script, they're reading the voice to text transcript, they're learning too, so they're going to learn that much faster. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities, and not just in logistics. Like I said in the beginning, we're hitting that first because that's my wheelhouse. But this is like a global, all business, high volume phone call type business that could be done for any business anywhere in the world, and it speaks 32 different languages. You could switch languages mid sentence. A driver can say, "Hey, I want to speak to you in Polish or Serbian or Russian or Mandarin," and it could switch instantly and say, "Okay, no problem," and switch to that language, which I think is a game changer also, because drivers would love to hear something and speak to somebody in their language.
Yeah, it's a lot easier sometimes too, because if you speak a little bit of Spanish or a little bit of something, like, you can kinda get the gist of it, but, a lot gets lost in translation. I really like the fact that you guys have this back office part of it as well, because I think that's something that's kind of, I don't wanna say overlooked, but it kind of is. Like, the in specifically in logistics, so much is focused on operations and carrier support and other stuff like that, which is great because that is like the bread and butter of everything. But there's also that entire back office team. Like, when you have the ability to not have to call drivers for signed BOLs or not have to hunt people down for their paperwork or their accounts receivable, like, you said a lot of things that, like, made me really happy as someone who has sat there and hounded people and called 10 different drivers every day saying, "Hi, can you please send in your, signed BOLs or your supporting documentation for these 10 loads? That'd be great. Thank you."
POD retrieval, yeah, POD retrieval and track and trace are, two roles that at Lean we probably had, 30-40% of the bodies. Actually, probably 80% of the first jobs we did were track and trace and POD retrieval teams, and then evolved, and now now every job's done at Lean for for logistics and out even outside logistics. But those jobs with automation, and like a lot of that stuff went away, especially like your accounts payable person. They get a bill and it's all automated now. It basically goes through. They don't have to do much. So they're taking inbound phone calls and then calling people back. How many voice messages do they get? And you call an AP department, they're like, the voicemail's full. Like, there's some busy people that are getting calls, and now you can deploy an AI agent for accounts payable person that can take all the calls, tell the people we got their invoice, it's teed up, this is the amount it's going to be paid, and if and direct people to the portal. And so, like, I think that there's a lot of that automation that's already there, and the voice AI just adds on to it, enhances it, and makes it better.
100%. And that's kind of that, that's where, AI is not necessarily going to replace you, but someone who uses AI effectively will. And that's where I think that that's a really important distinction because, you are freeing up your people to have more to work those exceptions, to work the problems and have more time to say, okay, well, here's how this happened. Maybe we need to look at something, and you have more time to put out that fire instead of running from fire to fire to fire to fire and just waiting for the fire to become not a forest fire, but basically like a massive one. So it's really nice that there is kind of that we're starting to see those opportunities where you can free up those people, where you can get those extra resources and those extra support without having to bring on and hire a whole new team, because sometimes you don't need a full new team. You just kind of need a couple extra hands here and there for a day or two, depending on how hairy a situation gets, because there's never any problems that are catastrophic in logistics. Never.
Yeah, right. Everything's an emergency. Everything's a transplant organ being hauled. It's but the funny thing is like, I used to always try to look for the smoke and not wait for the fire, because like if you waited for the fire, it was too late. But I think a lot of I think what's going to happen is a lot of some jobs in logistics are going to go away or need less people. But that just allows companies to deploy more resources to sales and customer service and sales, and what gets the business. And so, and then if you take AI and you use AI to scale sales as well, along with people, now your business should be growing, even faster, which means you need more, more people, more AI. So I think it's going to take a good 2 or 3 year leveling out period to where companies can right size the amount of people and AI combined with what they have.
Yeah, because you gotta have that. You have to have that like learning period of like, okay, we're gonna start implementing it. We're gonna train it. We need someone to babysit it for a little bit, and then you can start kind of pulling people away to do other things, which is fantastic. But when it comes to like a smaller brokerage, because obviously if you're in a pretty like higher medium size to a large size brokerage, there's a lot of places that you can kind of integrate AI. There's a lot more resources you have at your disposal to kind of not necessarily babysit it, but kind of help with the integration of it. But when you're at a smaller brokerage, typically, your operations support is wearing 3 or 4 different hats. So they might also be accounts payable. They might also work in the mailroom. They might do data entry and track and trace. How do you what are some of those tried and true tips that you say that you recommend for those smaller brokerages to kind of start introducing AI, because they can still be competitive. It's just a matter about being a little bit more strategic with where they implement it.
I think there's so many, you know, $5 to $40 million brokerages that are managing a core amount of business that they've always had, and there's not really a big use case for voice AI. There's a use case for paperwork flow and paperwork AI and stuff, but there's not that much use case because everything's done through email, everything's done, it's so I think, with those, we're probably not looking at the smaller brokerages and what they're doing. I mean, they definitely need to look at the paperwork flow of AI and whatnot. And maybe they need one agent, a voice agent, a receptionist that can answer the phone and not keep people on hold and answer questions and things like that. But I think the smaller brokerages, we underestimate how many of them out there just have this core business that they've had for 5, 10, 15 years and the same business over and over and over again. They don't grow much, but so those aren't really our core target audience. I think the ones with the higher call volumes and, a lot of the people that haven't automated a lot of other stuff are still getting the high call volumes too, because they don't have automation. They don't have portals. They don't have that. So it's, listen, I think trucking logistics still remains a highly fragmented, business segment. And I think there's a lot of opportunities, in the space. But we're going to tackle the space, hit it hard, and then try to see what adjunct spaces we can move to continue evolving. And like lean, when the recession hit, we had 85% of our business was in logistics, and the board the board always mandated let's stay focused on logistics. We always said, hey, we should branch outside, and we specialize, and then we realized, okay, like we need to branch outside. So we started branching outside, and 6 months into the recession and getting other business. And now I think maybe they're 60 or 70% logistics and growing in a ton of other business segments is insurance and other areas. So I think I don't want to make that same mistake here. I want to go heavy in logistics and have a team that focuses on logistics, but then bring in experts in other industries with contacts and networks in other industries, and keep deploying this in many industries, because, in 2 or 3 years, eventually what I see happening, what I'd like to see it evolve to, is our AI agents are speaking to our AI agents because that's what it should evolve to. If we have a carrier and a broker that are working together, but they don't want to go through the process of getting API connections and doing all that and going in load boards and doing, internal load boards or whatnot, then our AI should be able to call their AI and talk to each other. And I think that's what we're going to try to get to in logistics and be the fastest to get it there. And so, we're looking at, when we onboard a broker, who are we calling most? And those are our next target. Like, hey, you're getting X amount of calls. Let's deploy an AI agent on your side, and let's just let our AI agents talk and call that AI API.
I think that would be I would like to see the first like AI agent versus AI agent call. I like to think it would go well, but I also feel like there's like a strong chance that it gets like in testing phase, obviously. I like to think that there's like a pretty good chance it gets caught in like a loop. Because you always have to kind of test everything before you put it out in production, or at least I hope people do. And so I kind of want to see those like early phone calls between the two, just to see like kind of the like, well, this is definitely not the right prompt to go.
They actually they convert, and they don't speak on the call. You can see the text. They go to like Gibberlink and some other technology where they actually don't speak, and they convert to just like computer noise. It's actually pretty interesting, and I think it's evolved pretty quickly to that. And I think that's like the next quick phase of what this voice AI is going to go to, is how fast can we get AI talking to AI and AI dealing with AI. I think that's the race, the arms race we're looking at.
Well, yeah, because if I'm getting a bunch of inbound calls And so if I'm on the accounts receivable making all those outbound phone calls, I'm gonna have the AI do it for me. But also if I'm on the other end and I'm just getting inundated with phone calls of when is this gonna pay? When is this gonna pay? Would you have an update on this? I would 1,000% have an AI there as well, because it's just gonna save me from having to spend all day looking up PO numbers on the phone versus on the computer versus doing my actual job of processing payments and kind of figuring out any issues and working through those. And because that's honestly a much better use of someone's time than sitting there and answering phone calls all day of just going, yep, it's still going to pay on the same day it was always going to pay.
Yeah, and I think voicemail should like go away, because if you have an AI agent, like even an assistant AI agent, an AI, you can deploy your AI agent to call a restaurant, make reservations for you. Like there's like voicemail, I think is what is really gonna go away, and you're gonna have your voice AI agent assistant, and your voice AI assistant is gonna recognize your voice. It's gonna learn you. It's gonna learn your what you do. Even like when you get in a car that has any type of AI in it, it like tells you where you're going. You're like, how does it know I'm going here? Well, it tracks your patterns, and humans are pretty easily predictable in patterns. We're creatures of habit. So I think that voicemail is going to go away. I think that's going to be a thing of the past. And, sometime in the future, you're gonna have your voice AI agent that's going to be able to ask questions, answer questions. Hey, can I get you on a call next week? Let me look at my calendar. Well, I can put available calendar and have my voice AI assistant agent like book look and book it. You don't have to get to me. So instead of leaving me a message and I got to listen to the message and call back, and I hate voice messages. I usually just read the transcript, because I could read a transcript like 5 times faster than I could listen to the message.
Exactly. I will listen to the message enough to get the transcript and then or to like clear it off. If it's like if there's a phone number in there I need and I just can't call them back right now, I'll like let it play to like get the notification to go away. But for the most part I read it, and if there's not a transcript available, I get so angry.
Well, it used to be the voice answering machine at home, and then the phone company said, "Oh, well, let's see if we can set up voicemail boxes," and then that's set up, and then now you have voicemail on everything, and then I just think voicemail is going to be gone. I think like in a matter of time, an AI agents are going to get way less expensive too. It's not going to be that expensive to keep that, and it's going to make you super more productive, so you can enjoy more free time. And I think that's what people nowadays want, is more free time. Like people aren't workaholics and putting in 80-hour weeks anymore. I did 30 years ago. They're not doing it. Like even now, I'm in beautiful South Florida, and I'm like, okay, what time do I finish today? So maybe get outdoors and hit happy hour early. So it's I think that's what people want to do more and more, is like that work ethic of feeling like you have this pressure to work 60, 70 hours a week. I think is going to go away. And with AI, you don't have to. You can work 30 hours a week and get the productivity of 70. Imagine before we had email and faxes, you literally had to write a letter, send it in the mail, wait for a response. Like now we can send an email and get a response in like 8 seconds. So like it's just a matter of getting more productive and having more free time to enjoy life.
Exactly. No, I'm not, I mean, myself included, I'm not living to work. I'm working to live, man. I like my free time.
Yeah, I think everybody infinitely likes their free time more than they did. I think people had like a sense of guilt and responsibility and guilt if they didn't put in and work hard. It was like you're shamed. You got to work hard to get where you're going. And I mean, now it's work smart.
Yeah, definitely work smarter. Um, Speaking of working smarter, there's a question that we've switched to for our last question of the show. Everyone that's come on for the last 16 episodes has answered this question. So David, if you could build a house out of any food, what would it be?
Oh, it'd be pizza for sure. Pizza. It'd have to be pizza or French fries or both. I'd have pizza and I'd have like framed out in French fries.
Would you have like pizza walls and like French fry doors?
Yeah.
Okay. Follow-up question. Would every room be the same flavor, or would you have like a pepperoni room, a cheese room?
Yeah. You got to have rooms, right? You got to add character. So you'd have different rooms. Imagine if every room in
Awesome.
the house was exactly the same. How boring is that?
Exactly. It's very boring. What also one more question, just because I do love pizza. Would you have it all like thin crust, thick crust, deep
It's,
dish?
yeah, Chicago style, New York style, yeah, all it's good world pizza.
I like it. Just like a pizzas of the world
It's
tour of your
important.
house.
Italy, let's bring in some real Sicilian pizza right from Sicily and import it.
That would be you would never get me to leave that room. I would just be like, this is where I live now. Thank you so much. All right. So if people have maybe the best layout for pizza, for a pizza house, or if they have questions about kind of like how to get involved in this, where can they find you outside the show?
Yeah, go to info@cloneops.ai. You can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn also, and we're pretty easy to find. We got a good marketing team. Our marketing does really well getting us out there. So
Awesome. Well, you guys heard it here first. Clone Ops' DMs are open. So
yes,
come in with those hot pizza recs. Thank you so much for joining us today.
appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Find Check Call the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to check out all the other incredible FreightWave shows. And don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter on freightwaves.com/checkcall. See you on the internet.